Good morning and welcome into HogvilleNET YouTube Live. It is Friday morning, approaching the 11:20 hour. The Arkansas Razorbacks have picked up John Calipari, his second commitment in the class of 2026. This is breaking. It just happened. We just watched the live stream. If you got to check it out, about 5,000 fans tuned in, including other players at Arkansas is recruiting. Fandion. We know that he's a priority target, and his friends played. They're both from Guinea. ABDOU Toré with the commitment, class of 2026. National top 34-star player, and now he is a Razorback. This is something that, we've said all along that as long as John Calipari wanted to win this recruitment, he could and he would. Then it comes down to NIL and how much do you want it? And so we came on last night. We had early evening, 6 o'clock, source information saying that at some point Calipari had in fact increased the NIL offer within the range, though, the valuation range that he had. And then that Arkansas was slotted as the leader. And then you just wonder, does Providence, make a bold move and step out much stronger to a point where Calipari wouldn't be willing to go, and in the end up being the team of choice? But we went into it last night, had gotten my source info around 6 o'clock. And then at 9 o'clock, around 9 o'clock, I went on and recorded, and then I published it after midnight. And I explained all that. If you didn't see the episode, it was kind of neat. How I did it, because I was giving myself enough opportunity to get, if something else came down the pike in terms of intel about something maybe Providence had done to step up its offer, then I could re-record and put out something different after midnight. Turns out the one I recorded around 9 o'clock, it was my third run, by the way, because I'd gotten a little bit back from the Arkansas staff at the time I mentioned it, that they were hopeful coming into today, and they had an opportunity to tell me, no, we're out of it, or maybe some things that are out there aren't true, but they didn't do that. So coming into today, Arkansas again was the leader. Was Providence able to make any moves? And again, this was an announcement made after noon on the East Coast. ABDOU Toré, the 6'5" explosive, uber athletic wing, Notre Dame High School in West Haven, Connecticut. And this has been a long-term courtship relationship going back to the summer of 2024. Maybe even longer. But Calipari has prioritized Toré. We know that he took the unofficial visit to Arkansas in October of 2024, back on campus just a few weeks ago, mid-September, for a weekend official visit. And then you had the crystal balls, we've talked about this, come out. We've never acknowledged that Providence was in the lead. We said we were not even sure about that. All we know is if Calipari wants to finish, get across that finish line first, this guy's going to be a Razorback. And that's exactly what happened. Calipari, after that official visit by Toré, I think a week or so later, Sunday night, after a dueling 5-star visit with Fandion and Jordan Smith Jr., concluded on Sunday night. On a Sunday night, Calipari was off to West Haven, Connecticut for an in-home visit with Toré. Providence, Kim English, that group out later to do an in-home, I think maybe about a week or so later. And then this was really going to come down to then if Providence was really willing to increase that NIL, which we were told they did. And again, told that Calipari did. And so I don't know specifically if Providence, escalated its offer. If it did, it wasn't enough in the end to win Toré over. It's Arkansas. And certainly a couple of things I did find out after I recorded last night. The same source I talked to at 6 o'clock reached back out to me and told me one other thing, that he felt like Arkansas landing Toré, which is where it was headed and was what we said. He said he felt like that would absolutely help Arkansas, because one of the questions I asked when we spoke earlier in the evening, and he said, let me find out. I said, how much would this help with Fandion? Now remember, both of these players are from Guinea. Arkansas's also prioritized Diane for over a year. Calipari out to see him multiple times. He took his official visit that weekend of September 19th to the 21st, a week after Toré was on campus. But initially they were planned to visit together. When I brought you all the updated information, every time Diane moved his visit dates for Arkansas, we did explain to you using, providing intel from my source that said, look, the whole idea for the dueling visit was actually originally Diane and ABDOU Toré, because they're both from Guinea. They were teammates on the 17 and under Guinea team that played in the FIBA World Cup at that time, or one of the events for FIBA. and the Coach Cass, who Deanne wanted to have on his official visit, had a scheduling conflict the weekend of the 12th to the 14th when he was supposed to visit with Toré, and they had to move it out a week. So it ended up Deanne visiting with Jordan Smith Jr. So that Cass could be there for that. So Toré and Deanne, there's still a connection there. Airfan Deanne was one of the folks that jumped in. I saw his name when he jumped into the live stream that Toré had to announce his commitment today. Inside the gym at Notre Dame High School, the place was packed. It was loud. He was excited. It was really cool. And you saw Deanne and some other, again, Arkansas targets that had joined in on that to see what's going on. And so let's see. My source tells me again later last night, and it was after I had recorded, that he felt like this really helps Arkansas with Airfan Deanne, assuming that Arkansas, if it is running second still to Houston, which has been the case for a while, if that remains so, something like this can only help. And you think, well, that seems kind of obvious. Well, not until you start hearing it from folks that are asking these questions with people directly involved, kind of in real time. And so that was something that was circled back to me after that source checked on it again last night. And so I thought that was an interesting part. Let's talk about ABDOU Toré. I've seen this guy play multiple times on the Adidas 3SSB circuit the last couple of years. 17U BABC, that's a Boston area club. And, you know, this is a young man that is he's arguably the most explosive athlete, especially when you look at backcourt wings in this class. This is a rim hunting slasher galore. Reminds me a lot of Billy Richmond size-wise. And when you look at that bounce and you look at that willingness to take on contact and finish at the rim, this is what this guy does. He's put together to eventually be a plus, if not elite defender. We'll see how that development goes. Back when he played for Guinea, I mean, this is a guy putting up 50-plus points. And then you look at, statistically on the Adidas 3SSB circuit, it was good stuff. But at the same time, he's a guy that, in addition to demonstrating all that athleticism, I've noticed in games that are tight, he makes clutch plays. I go back to the Under Armour Elite 24 All-Star game last summer when he was playing with mostly 2025 five-stars. He had a big game in that, but real productive outing, and hit the game winner. It was an Elam ending, and he hit the game-winning three-point shot at what was a tie game for his team. And again, he's just kind of been a big stage guy when those opportunities come around. Now, there's several things here that I want to talk about. Again, Cal's NIL was stronger. When I learned what that number was, I haven't shared it. I'm not going to share it for now. If it gets out there, then we'll talk about it. But when I learned it, I thought it was stronger than I would have guessed. The initial offer, and I'm told he had some wiggle room and moved it up a bit to make sure this thing finished right and landed right. In addition to that, one of the visions that Arkansas has, and we've talked about this before in Calipari, he is not afraid to put together players at the same position in the same class. I mean, he did it at the wing spot with Carter Knox and Billy Richmond, who I just compared a lot with Toré. And so you look at that and say, well, one was the number one priority. Well, of course, J.J. Andrews, in-state guy, legacy, five-star. I've got him ranked in the top 5 in the country in my rankings. By the way, Toré ranked around 30th. I think ESPN has him 31st, 4-star. A couple of other services in the low 30s. So you've got him in that kind of in that wheelhouse there of knocking on the door of 5-star status. Once upon a time, he was a composite 5-star. But putting these players together makes sense because it's something Calipari's done through his career. Not worried about egos, and he's the guy that can correct all that because of the opportunities he's able to afford everybody that he's going to count on. Anybody that he's going after with NIL in this era, they're going to be part of the plan. And so you saw how it worked last year. True freshmen, Carter Knox and Billy Richmond. One guy didn't suffer because of the other guy's success. They both got better. They both were a huge part of what Arkansas was doing, especially at the end of the year when they turned the season around and made that run. And you were down to a 6 or 7 rotation, and both of those guys were factored in heavily into Arkansas' success and doing it a lot of times on the court together. This is a vision for something similar. We can't give you a prediction on that, how well it's going to go. But again, Calipari's track record, it's pretty damn good in these kind of things. And so Hallelujah for, for Toré. Yeah, so you've got now J.J. Andrews. Arguably, I think he's the top wing in the country. I think Toré's right up there. He may be a little underrated. Again, I've seen him play multiple times. You watch his highlights. He's a guy that, again, when I've seen him in tight situation, he makes big plays. So there's a clutch element. Streaky a little bit. He's got a nice little mid-range game that he can turn to. The three-point shooting is streaky. If you look at Calipari backcourt wing players, he doesn't necessarily go after the guy that's, going to lead the nation in three-point attempts and percentage, or someone that could. That, not saying that he doesn't ever look in those directions, but typically the guys he goes wholeheartedly after fit in the same mold as these two. And I just made the Knox and Billy Richmond the third comparisons. There's others we could make, but those seem like good ones to me. And I can't stress enough how much Calipari really wanted this player, and he was able to do this within the limits of what he was okay with on his valuation range for ABDOU Toré. Now we look ahead and we think, well, are both Carter Knox and Billy Richmond III going to be gone? Isaiah Seeley, we'll see through his development what Arkansas's plan is. He's another wing at minimum, maybe a combo guard that you play through as a primary handler for parts or some games as he continues to develop. We don't know how much we're going to see of him as a freshman. We expect him to be back for a sophomore campaign, and then maybe one of Billy Richmond and Carter Knox. Carter Knox has first-round NBA draft projections, and as long as he has the kind of season we think he's headed for, he's more than likely gone. Billy Richmond III is another question there. So Arkansas could be really loaded up with big guards and wings, and then you figure out how to make that work again if you're John Calipari. But Arkansas now with two off the board to the Razorbacks. And we know, we've said all along that Calipari, he says it, 3 or 4 at the high school ranks each year, the preferred level guys, not maybe some back end to fill the roster types. 3 or 4, we've said if the dominoes fell just right in terms of what he would be okay with expanding that, they might go to 5. But we always said we thought Arkansas would be around 3 by the early signing period. And so J.J. Andrews is going to get it done early. ABDOU Toré is going to get it done early. These guys are going to be signed and delivered here shortly when the November, or, it's still mid-November. That's not too far out. It's just next month, about 5 or 6 weeks. These guys will do their paperwork and they'll be part of the team going into their senior seasons of high school. And so I expect Arkansas in the early period to be around 3. I think they can get one more. I think that's Calipari's goal. And then through the spring, if you have to wait on a Jordan Smith Jr. or a Brandon McCoy, we'll see about Caleb Holt. Arkansas has been a strong footing with several players here, some that we've deemed Arkansas to be in the lead, at least for, initially, or maybe still. Deane's a player that Arkansas is really close on closing the gap if it hasn't already with Houston. And again, the Toré addition only helps with Fandion. But we'll see, again, does Arkansas get that third commitment to finish out, to get to the early period? And could they grow it to 4 by then? I'm a little skeptical that would happen, but it might. I'm not ruling it out. There's a path for that. But more than likely, they're not done just yet in terms of how it shapes up in the early signing period in mid-November. I think they feel like they're going to get to at least 3 by that time, with the ability maybe pushing through to the spring to add more. And again, the dominoes would have to fall just right for Calipari to expand on what his notion has been since he's been at Arkansas, to limit the high school part of it 3 or 4. But he's the best high school recruiter ever. This is another example of it. I don't see any reason to really go down. I mean, if you want to look at Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff Jr. last year, UConn had those players in for official visits. Danny Hurley trying to win those recruitments, and that didn't quite work out for him, did it? And this is a situation where there's been mixed messaging. Some thought that UConn really wasn't trying to be a player here, that they weren't prioritizing him, but they were prioritizing at the same level in terms of want as Arkansas was. Each one has another wing at the top of their board. Arkansas just has theirs committed already going into this, and UConn's doesn't. I think the difference here is when you talk about wanting a player, Arkansas has the ability, Calipari has the ability with NIL. People say, well, why is Arkansas not stepping to the plate with NIL sometimes? Why are they okay to let things go? Because they have ranges of what they're okay with doing. And I think Arkansas's top end range for this player is somewhere that UConn wasn't necessarily comfortable going, especially not knowing where they sit with their top priority at the wing spot. Again, Arkansas already had that resolved. So it changes things a little bit there. So you're really keeping an eye on Providence, who doesn't have the cachet recruiting with the name that Arkansas and UConn have. But they can earmark some of their, maybe more of their revenue share for basketball. And if they can figure out a pathway to make a statement, this was an opportunity to do that. And at the end of the day, there just wasn't enough steam there. And Calipari did what he needed to do on the NIL part of it because he checked every other box. It was a blowout otherwise. That's another way of saying it. All right, we're over 15 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. We're live today. I've been in so many recordings lately that I forget whether I'm recording or I'm on live. We're doing it live. I see the comments. I appreciate everybody being on here. I've got to wrap this up. I've got more content I've got to write. I've got to get ready and hit the hill, get in the car and head up to the hill because we've got prime time at the Palace. We're keeping our eyes on unofficial visitors that we might be able to talk about. I haven't been green-lighted on anything yet, so we're going to zip it up on that. But I look forward to that. This is going to be exciting. I'm going to do another live, at least one more later tonight. The event starts at 8, doors open at 7 at Bud Walton Arena. We know the men's and women's teams are going to be introduced. Laser light show, dunk contest, maybe a three-point shooting contest, and some level of scrimmaging on the men's team is what we've been told. So what does that look like? How much do we get to see? Is it more of a fun thing and just some pickup up and down, or is there some structure? Who knows? Don't know yet, but we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to do a wrap show at Bud Walton before they kick us out after that wrap. So we're going to do a live then. So you'll see me again much later today. And then we'll talk about anything we can talk about in terms of unofficial visits being there. Remember, the basketball team has Fayetteville to itself this weekend. No, a bye week for the football Hogs. So if you get a chance to get out there, be there, because I know I'm going to be there. And we'll see, again, if there's anything that I need to break on for before then. I don't think that's going to happen. If it does, I'll pull my car over to the side of the highway or pull off the off-ramp and go live in my car. That's just how I do it. What are we leaving out here, if anything? I'm kind of rushing through this a little bit. I think at the end of the day, you have to trust Calipari because he's been really, really good and effective at identifying the kind of players that help him continue to have, really good product that he puts out on the floor. So even though there was some postseason struggles in his last handful of years at Kentucky, most of that time he had really strong teams, really good in the SEC. There were a few outliers, but for the most part, this guy gets it. He understands what he needs in recruiting. He's made the tweaks and necessary adjustments to embrace at least some of the transfer portal, really focusing a lot now on retention, where in the past he'd load up on as many one and dones as possible and try to help them out and then just reload again. He's balancing that a little bit. This is part of the plan. This is not connected to anybody else that Arkansas is recruiting right now. It's not. I've said that every time that we've talked about. I'm like, don't look at what's going on with Toré and think, oh, this means if Arkansas is now closing on him that something's gone awry with one of these other guards or some other position group, because now the wings are spoken for. When Cole Clower it ended up with the Final Five, it was clear to me at that time that was coinciding around the time Arkansas was starting to show more priority, stepping up the priority work with Toré. Arkansas, in my opinion, is done at the wing spot and is really now, I consider everybody else that's been on this campus to visit. We know Tate Kennedy committed to Kansas. Everybody else is really a backcourt, a 1 or 2 or some kind of combo. I don't compare it to what I see when I look at the combination of J.J. Andrews and ABDOU Toré. All right, thank you for joining me again on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm going to sign off. If you haven't done it already, please hit subscribe, like, and share. That helps us out. Turn the notifications on. There's a lot more to come, a lot more recruiting, and now the first of 4 exhibition events tonight. We'll see how much the ball actually bounces in a competitive way, but the first of 4 this month. So it's all starting to happen. So if you're getting excited about a coaching change in football, go ahead with that. Just make room for basketball because it's the train's coming and it's not going to get stopped. We're just going to keep rolling it. Until next time, thanks for being here. Appreciate all of you. See you soon.